I think this is the first time for both of you writing specifically for a TYA audience. Is that correct?
I've written a few other projects for the youth program, but
the youth program, like right. But not like a full length. Yeah.
No.
And you both are doing Myth. So Sam first, and then Sarah. Was Myth your idea? Was it fed? I know Caroline Kaiser, our director of education, was reaching out to the playwrights to write plays for TYA. Did she give you suggestions on what myths to focus on? How did you choose the myth that you're ended up working on now? And Sam, if you would answer first.
Sure. The myth was all we started with. They gave us, or at least me, a lot of freedom and flexibility as far as deciding what myths to focus on. So I was looking at myths from all around the world at first, but then I came around to the opinion that it would be a lot easier to keep them cohesive if I focused on just the Greeks, as far as finding a framing device to tie them all together in a short amount of time. So I decided to focus on the Greeks, and I was looking for myths that had that said things that were relevant to kind of what we're thinking about today, but weren't too heavy-handed, and in which a lesson could be gleaned fairly easily with minor tweaking and removal of not safe for youngsters material.
I'm going to come back to that. Yeah, Sarah.
Similarly, so I was asked to find a myth that I wanted to base a TYA play on. I put forward 3, and we had some conversation about what would be most effective. And we came to the understanding that I would work on Pandora's box. And what was important to me when I was looking at those myths was really I wanted to write about something that had meaning to me right now, and where I felt like I could contribute in a positive way to what's happening in the world at the moment. And so the kernel of hope in Pandora struck a very salient chord in me, and that's what I wanted to focus on.
Do you change your approach at all, or how do you change your approach writing for a young audience as opposed to an adult audience?
Well, I try not to change it too much, because even though it's been several centuries, I remember what it was like to be a child, and I got a lot more out of adults not talking down to me, and even adults not being afraid of using 3-syllable words, because kids are bright and they can draw from the context. And I especially remember the Looney Tune cartoons. They were accessible to me, but they never made me feel like I was being talked down to. And if there was a reference I didn't get, like I didn't know who Edward G. Robinson was, but then I found out. So not only did it not bother me that I didn't know everything that they were talking about, but it was actually an opportunity to learn.
Sarah, you mentioned hope, and I'm going to kind of piggyback this with a question that came in too, just because I know so many of our supporters are snowbirds, or they travel a lot. We have a lot of people who have moved down from your area. And of course, with everything going on, there's tons of concern about just being safe. And so how are you doing in New York? What's it like to write in New York about hope at this time in that city? Has that been part of the ether for you in terms of your process?
Oh, absolutely. So we have been displaced from our home for 3 months. I'm now back in New York City, but we live, my husband and my 2 children and I, we live in the only zip code in Manhattan that had the highest incidence in the entire island. So it's a small sort of enclave where it's very residential, and we have 2 little kids. And so we all share the same 2 grocery stores. We all share the same parks when they were open, et cetera, et cetera. So we chose to go upstate to family, which I was very lucky to be able to do, and got out while we were, everyone was still healthy. But this makes me emotional. Our world has been completely rocked, so it's very real. It's very real for us to need hope, and for me to be able to make a contribution that feels hopeful.